Hi, my name is Tomasz, but you can call me TSB. Recently I got a request from a friend of mine to build a bespoke PC with very specific instructions. Part of the resulting build was an AMD Ryzen 5 3400G APU. I got very excited at this proposition as I could get hands-on time with the best APU present on the market in various gaming workloads. Since I already have a compatible board in my rig, it was testing time. To set expectations, this is a Zen 2 part only in name. The architecture of the processor part of the APU is based on Zen+. In most aspects, the closest CPU is a Ryzen 5 2500X, which was the weakest member of the Ryzen 5s targeting the mainstream. It is much harder to find a proper discrete counterpart on the GPU side for the Vega 11. As the name alludes, it has 11 Vega compute units. While it retains the frequency of Vega 64, it is difficult to imagine the GPU part of the solution to break out from 2018 entry-level performance with 1/6 of the compute units and the handicap of the system memory bandwidth and allocation. Alas, I don't have an unlimited budget. However, my library expanded to a decent width over the years. While the newest iteration of a popular title might not be included, a version of most popular game engines with a half-decent benchmark are covered. Note that this piece will not cover esports titles or indie games, as most of these run on a calculator at this point. With all of that said, let's delve into the games. Assassin's Creed Origins runs on the Anvil Next 2.0 engine. This engine powers most Ubisoft games since Assassin's Creed Unity released back in 2014. Starting off at 1080p low, we see a very concerning picture of massive frame drops and a lot of visual artifacts. The game is nowhere near playable, even with dropping details to very low, as the ultimate performance remains steady around very choppy 26 frames per second. The game allows for rendering at lower resolution than what is displayed. This is selected as a percentage of the current resolution. The minimum selectable option is 50%, which should yield the rendering at roughly 785p or 540p depending on which metric is used. By spying into the future of the 720p results, I'm guessing the latter is the case with a very rough 38 FPS average that is still suffering from huge frame drops. Even if the game would be playable, we are at a point where it is very difficult to look at the screen and enjoy what's going on. Moving to 720p low at 100% resolution scaling, the situation remains unchanged. Dropping to very low gives us an extra frame, but again, because of some huge frame drops, even this is unplayable. Unfortunately, if what you are playing are mostly Ubisoft titles, given the very poor frame timing, I cannot recommend the 3400G. Car Mechanic Simulator 2018 runs on one of the most ubiquitous engines of today, Unity. Jumping in at 1080p medium, we are no longer suffering from massive drops like in Assassin's Creed. The experience is still rather poor, as the frame timings are noticeably all over the place. These clear up somewhat with moving to 1080p low. However, the game loses some of its magic with dropping to the basement of graphical fidelity. No worries, let's drop the resolution. 720p medium sees us at a steady 40-ish frames. While not entirely smooth, I could already see someone enjoying the experience. Dropping to 720p low, we are almost at 50 frames per second. Since the experience is still not smooth, I would recommend staying at 720p medium for this title. Forza Horizon 4 is built on an in-house solution called Forza Tech, and is the only universal Windows platform app in this review. Surprisingly enough, both 1080p high and medium are showing promise. There are a couple of dips below 30 here, but in general this is already playable. Dropping to 1080p low gives the game enough life, where I would recommend picking it up with the 3400G. Moving to the least demanding setting of 1080p very low further increases the number of frames delivered. However, similarly to Car Mechanic Simulator 2018, I would hesitate to recommend this setting as it compromises the integrity of the experience too much. Considering results from other times I have tested games on the Ego engine, I got a little wide-eyed with starting on the 1080p ultra high setting. The game bit back with a stuttery showing that was not pleasant to the eyes. Going to 1080p high managed to break the 40 FPS average barrier. However, the game remained unplayable. Dropping to 1080p medium seemed to resolve the stuttering. While the game still felt a bit sluggish, we have finally arrived into playable territory. I would easily recommend both 1080p low and 1080p ultra low, as these frame time minimums are high enough to be comfortable to the eye without jeopardizing the high-octane experience. Staple of Rockstar running on the Rage engine is at the start of 2020 still actively updated. Unfortunately, there are no hard and fast settings one can use to test the title. Because of that, it is tough to perform a like-for-like comparison to what a regular user might set. Except for everything on and everything off, of course. Taking a video memory gauge as the main limiter, I have created a custom setting which is still within the 3400G's window. Running this at 1080p proved above of what the 3400G is capable of dealing with. The gameplay was nowhere near comfortable. Never mind, let's move to the known quantity of the lowest possible at 1080p. Drawing distance limitations are tough to the eye, but other than that, I would trade the smoothish experience for the loss of graphical fidelity. Switching to 720p and the custom memory limit settings, we get similar behavior to the one on the 1080p lowest. Sluggish, not perfect. Jumping down to 720p lowest, we finally achieve something I can safely recommend from the gameplay perspective. It is a little infuriating that frame times are all over the place. Both Forza Horizon 4 and Grid 2 were delivering their frames in a much smoother fashion. An average of 40 frames per second is nowhere enough to get smooth gameplay in GTA 5. Purpose-built for the Metro series, the 4A engine has a nice standalone benchmark that is executable outside of the game. Starting off at 1080p low, the 3400G is struggling mightily and dips to as low as 20 FPS. Let's try something less taxing in 720p high. This resolves most of the problems immediately, as the only thing keeping the game from a more favorable result is frame time consistency and the resulting choppiness. 720p medium is where it is at with this game, as the timing floor rises to a comfortable level. Powered by the newest iteration of the ancient Litech engine, Middle-earth Shadow of War provides another glimpse into the difficulty of keeping an engine up-to-date and performant. At 1080p medium, we are getting an extremely choppy presentation, which averages only 22 FPS. The game remains largely unplayable at 1080p low, adding only a few inconsequential frames to the average. Oh well, at least the minimum FPS crept out of the single digits, right? Transitioning to 1080p lowest provides even less gains, with the floor staying around 15 FPS. I had a feeling, so I skipped all the way to 720p lowest. By looking at only the average, one would think that we have arrived at least into gritting teeth playable territory. However, that is still not the case, as frame times are skipping above 50 milliseconds in an unpredictable way. Thus, Middle-earth Shadow of War joins Assassin's Creed Origins in the "Don't touch with a 10-foot pole" club. Last but not least, a well-executed PC port from the Nix's porting house of a Crystal Dynamics game, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Starting at 1080p lowest with a relatively stable flat average performance of 30ish FPS. Unfortunately, this is still not enough for playable territory. Dips below 30 FPS are common and rather irritating even in relatively tame flybys. Dropping resolution to 720p, let's try the medium setting first. This setting provides an awfully similar experience to the previous one, we even lose a couple of frames. Thus, we must go lower. Switching to 720p low, we finally see something resembling playable footage. Staying above 30 FPS at all times helps tremendously, as the frame pacing of the engine is great. Lastly, 720p lowest boosts the average frame count by an impressive amount. However, to the naked eye, even this falls short of a smooth experience. I find it very hard to recommend the 3400G for 1080p gaming. The package struggles mightily, especially on the graphics side. Finding a suitable alternative is, however, rather difficult due to the low price of the APU. Look on the used market to find the Ryzen 5 1600 and combine it with a used RX 570 or a GeForce 1060 6GB or similar. If you don't mind dropping the resolution to 720p, it is possible to do a decent amount of quote-unquote serious gaming. The only context in which I could see recommending the APU is in extremely budget-constrained scenarios in which a discrete GPU would be added at a later date. The sad state of affairs is that the Vega 11 part of the APU is the one that's holding back the whole package. Mitigating solutions like RAM upgrade doesn't make much sense here due to the prohibitive prices of sticks rated at higher speeds. Not to mention a higher-end motherboard would need to be present to support these. Instead, as mentioned before, getting a second-hand discrete GPU on the level of an RX 570 or a 6GB 1060 would be a much better investment. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed. Feedback is always appreciated. Leave yours down below, then hammer that subscribe button. This is TSB, signing out. Bye.